Good job. Yeah, sound like Indians out there, right? For Quilt Tribe. Okay, so as soon as Eric gets out here, or when Orion comes around, you have to see an updated picture of Sadie. So this is at a restaurant called Red Robin, and it's like the hamburger place.
Yeah.
So we met there on Saturday, and it was really funny. We got there a few moments before Dylan, Kelly, and Sadie got there. And you go into Red Robin, and there's like all these strollers. It's like a stroller outlet store because it's really family oriented. And they all take their little carriers out, and they put them in these things. Well, I used to call them like where you dry your clothes on, those racks. And the carrier just sits right down there. But it was really funny. I'm just like, oh my, there must have been 15 of them. It was really funny, but it was good. And she sat on my lap like for an hour and didn't fuss at all. So she knew who I was. That's what I'm telling myself anyway.
Yeah.
She knew who I was.
She wasn't fussing, she knew you.
She likes you.
She likes me.
She likes the vibes coming from you.
Good vibes. Good sewing vibes.
Good happy smile. And
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, so we have 4 blocks today. I think you're going to think they're really fun. The first one is called Knife. And it doesn't really look like a knife, but I found this really cute tulip pink fox in the middle. I thought, isn't that cute? So we'll go through with how to make that. I'll put up on the board. Isn't that bright and cheery? Yeah. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make our peace triangle squares. You love those peace triangle squares, right? So depending on what size blocks you're doing, it'll depend on what size squares you want to start with. I'm doing the 9-inch blocks. I'm continuing on that journey. And so I'm starting with 5-inch squares. And remember, you're going to draw an X, and then you're going to sew on both sides of that X a 1/4 inch away. And if it's really good, you should be a 1/2 inch apart on your seams, right? So when you go to cut them apart, the most important thing, and I can't tell you this enough and enough, because even I do it sometimes at home, make sure that you cut this vertical seam and you cut the horizontal seam before you cut the diagonals, because you want to get 8 little peace triangle squares. And in the illustration on page 3, it shows a picture of that as well. But some of us look at the pictures, some of us read the words, some of us actually read the words and looked at the pictures. So whatever works for you. Okay, so we're going to, you're going to square them up. And then you're going to press all your seams, or you're going to press all your seams away from your background or towards your medium, whichever way you want to say it. And you'll need all 8 of them. And the next thing we're going to do is flying geese. And I have a whole lecture on flying geese. I want to take it in and do a little webinar on it here someday, because it's all different ways you can use flying geese. So anyway, but we're going to do those, and then we're going to square those up. So we're going to turn the page. You get a little bit more instruction on this one this time. Okay, so then you get to your geese. And the next thing we're going to do, once we have all our geese done, we're just going to sew a peace triangle square on both ends of that geese. So it kind of looks like it's like fanning out, okay? We're making this unit right here. And we're going to need to make 4 of them, because you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So we can just assembly line sew all 4 of them. And when you get done, they're going to look like this. And I always just press my seams away from that flying geese patch. It's the way it's going to want to go anyway. So it seems to lie pretty flat that way. And then on 2 of these units, you're going to set 2 of these aside. And the other 2, you're going to sew a background square to both ends. And the reason we're doing that is because when we go to lay everything out, here's my little fox. So the ones that don't have the little corner squares on them, they're going to go along the sides, and you're going to sew those on first. And then you're going to go ahead and sew your top and bottom on. Okay? That's all there is to it. It's cute, huh? Yeah, it's really nice if you can find a really good fussy cut for your center. And if you're doing the 12-inch blocks, you're going to have a big fussy cut, right? All right. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is Otter. And I think this one's really pretty. I just like the simplicity of this block. It's kind of like a turn dash inside a turn dash, which is pretty fun. So I'll put that up on the board. I was looking for more of this fabric, but I think it took a trip to Paducah. I'll have to look for it there. Okay, so we're going to start out by making these piece triangle squares right here. Pretend these aren't sewn on there. So we're going to make these first. So you start out with a pretty large piece of fabric of your medium little print and your background. This time we only need 4. So you're just going to draw one vertical line and then a diagonal line in each one of the squares you made, and just sew on both sides. Again, you're going to want to start sewing on the inside here, pivot when you get to that line, go out to the end, and I kind of pull my whole piece out of the machine for a little bit to give it a little bit of give on the thread, and then I'm going to go up the other side and down. All right, so that's pretty good. When you get done with that,
And you cut the middle first.
yeah, you'll cut on all of the drawn lines. That was very good. She just asked about cutting. Yes, I cut this line first and then these ones. Just don't make the mistake of sewing on this line. This is just for a reference for drawing your diagonals. Okay, so we got that. So here's our patch. I did press my seams away from my background again, which I typically do if there's not a locking issue. And then to do our little shoe fly that's in the middle of our block, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 of the dark squares that you cut, and you're just going to draw one diagonal line. Now for video, I used a permanent pen so you can see my line, but I recommend you use some sort of pen that would go away, like a friction pen or a blue marker, just something that's going to disappear, because you don't want this marking pen to come through on the right side. Okay, so that's why I remembered about the friction pen. I love those friction pens. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that square and I'm just going to put it right sides together to the medium. So it's dark to medium. And I am going to sew, I don't know how close Eric can get, probably no close actually. I'm just going to sew just, if I turn it this way, it's just going to be just to the right of that drawn line. So when I go to take it out of my machine, the first thing I'm going to do is check and make sure that that dark indeed goes out to the edge. And by having your thread being a little bit closer to the right, it allows for that fold that happens. Okay? So you always want to check that before you trim it off. So the next thing we're going to do is trim off that excess, and then we're going to press it out. And I just pressed my seam towards my dark. Okay, so that's pretty easy. And now we're going to lay out our block. Here's our little center. And it kind of looks like it'd be hard to get that other shoe fly stuck in there, isn't it? Mm-hmm. No, it's pretty easy. Okay, so we make that, and then I just have some background little filler pieces for the side here. Okay, and when I go to press, after it's sewn together, when I go to press it, I'm going to press all of my seams so they go towards the lattice. So these are going to get pressed this way, and these are going to get pressed this way, and then when I sew the block together, it'll go towards the middle. And there's a really good illustration on the bottom of page 7 about that. So is it pretty good?
Yes.
Are you encouraged?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, good, good. Loudly be encouraged.
All right.
Okay, so the next one we're going to do is called Zig Zag, because I needed a Z letter, or Z word. Right? That's all it was to it. So it's kind of cute. It's another opportunity to get a fussy cut and kind of promote that. I've started to put these blocks around my sewing room at home. There's a lot of blocks. I don't know if you guys, there's a lot of blocks. We're going to get some good quilts. So, okay, we're going to start out by making our piece triangle squares. So doing the exact same thing as we did in the first block. On the knife block, same thing is going to happen. And just to remind you, we're going to press your seams towards your dark, away from your background, and square them up. Okay? So then we're going to do, let's turn the page to page 10. And we're going to lay out our patches. So they look just like this. And just kind of remember that these two darks are going to come together. It kind of reminds me like of a butterfly. Okay? And then we're going to flip those right sides together, and we'll just sew a 1/4 inch down. Now you're going to need to make 4 sets of each of these because there's 4 corners. Okay? So I would just assembly line sew it like that. And then you can go back and cut apart between every 2 patches. And then what we're going to do is we're going to flip it right sides together again. Oops, right sides together again. And we're going to have the seam on top going up and the seam underneath going down. Now the important thing to remember on this patch is we do not open up that center seam. And we don't want to open it up because I want it to lock with our flying geese patches that we're going to be making next. So just make sure
We don't swirl.
no swirling.
No swirling.
No swirling. Okay, and there's a picture that shows no swirling. So make sure you look at those pictures, okay? All right, so then we're going to have to make our geese. And this time we're going to have dark star points, so that's why the bigger square is dark, or the medium, whatever it is, but it's not background. And once it's squared up, we're going to have 8 little flying geese patches that look just like that. And we're going to each one of those, we're going to sew a background. Okay, so let's go this way so I match my illustration. Okay, so we're just going to lay these out. There'll be 4 in each stack, 4 background pieces and 4 flying geese. And we'll just take them one by one and flip it right sides together. And when you flip it right sides together, you're going to have a seam that goes just like that. Okay? And then when it's pressed open, you're going to press it towards your background. And it's going to lie nice and flat for you because you're not fighting any of those seams. So that would be great. So now let's lay out our block. Here's my little bird. And these are actually going to be my side pieces. Okay. And then remember I talked about not swirling these seams? Well, these geese patches here, these seams are going towards the background here and here. You can, whoops, not that far. Okay, and see these are going in. So when I put those in, then these are going to lock together because this is going up and this is going down. This is going up and this is going down. So just when you go to lay out, just take a little spot check to make sure the one that they're both going towards that same square, those are the ones that go in the inside corner. And then your block will lock together just great. Okay, one more. All right, so there you go. And it sews together real nice so you don't have any trouble with your matching your points or anything because you got those good locking seams going on.
Yay.
Yay!
I like that.
Yeah, it's a fun one. All right. Gorge. So here's our gorge one. That looks nice and cheery, doesn't it, don't you think? Yeah. And guess what? This is a great block for you. You'll be so excited. There are no flying geese in this block, and there are no peace triangle squares.
Yay. Yay.
I had to throw that in for you. It's like your reward. But I know many of you will start out with that block. Okay, the first thing we're going to work on is going to work on our corners. So basically, what I did was I just sewed a background strip to a medium strip and press it all at once. Okay, so it's all going towards your medium. And then I'm going to cut it into 4 equal pieces. So today, for mine, it's going to be 4 pieces that are 2 by 3.5. This should be 3.5 inches wide, which I know your 1/4 inch seam is really good now, so you should have that. There's a little bit of excess on both sides, and that's just to make sure that you have a really good even lineup on each one of these 4 pieces. Okay, so just to show you, you had like a little bit on both ends. Okay, so that you can get rid of. Okay, and I would stack those up. I didn't, oh, do you want me to throw them like Eleanor? I just got done picking them up from last night. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to take, I have some medium rectangles that I cut that should be the same size as these, and they are. I was really happy when I was doing my little demo, everything lines up. And I'm just gonna put this to the left so I can take my little piece patch and I'm just gonna flip it right sides together and sew, and then I'm not fighting that seam at all. Okay, so you can just line it up just like the picture, and that's what you're gonna get. Okay, so once it's sewn, you're gonna press it so it goes away from the background again. So you're gonna make 4 of those. And then to do our sides are just really easy too. You're gonna start with a longer strip, and I'm gonna cut it into 4 3.5-inch pieces for my 9-inch block. So just cut 4 of those. But you get a much better patch if you sew strips together and then subcut them later than trying to sew 2 rectangles together. Okay, so let's lay out and see what we got. Here's my little fussy cut center. And then these are my sides. So my pink goes towards my center. And then here's my corners. It'll go like that. Pretty easy, huh? And everything just locks together from the previous pressing. And that's all there is to it. Yay! Thank you for coming. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.